Hello, everyone, and welcome to Authentic Voices, a space where we celebrate stories that inspire, connect, and empower our communities. I'm your host, Noma, and today we're talking about something that's celebrated across a lot of communities, especially in Zimbabwe, and that is education. Our guest today is someone whose life has been devoted to teaching and shaping young minds. He's been in the classroom for over 20 years, and he has also served in leadership and administrative roles in private schools. Through dedication and a genuine love for his work, he has helped build learning spaces that not only nurture academics, but character and purpose. Please help me to welcome Courage Zvobwo, a passionate teacher and educational leader. Hi, Courage, and thank you for joining us for our episode today on Authentic Voices.
Thank you very much for having me on the program, Noma.
And Courage, your story is an interesting one. You are a passionate teacher, an educational leader, and we're privileged to have you on the show today. Do you want to take us back a little just to share your story with us, where it all began and how you made the decision to become a teacher?
Well, I think I came into the teaching fraternity purely by accident. I lost my dad when I was 19. It was the easiest route, at least, to support my family. I graduated at Hillside Chess College in 2001. I've been teaching ever since.
Oh, interesting. Well, I know some people say the calling found them, but I'm assuming from your story, it was more of you start joining the teaching fraternity and then finding the calling within the teaching fraternity. And it's interesting because you've been in this job for a long time, like almost 24 years.
Sure.
Wow, that's interesting. And I believe that's really a huge milestone as well. What have been some of the biggest changes that you've seen in the classroom over the years and even in learners?
I thank God. I think I've had the good fortune of teaching in government schools. And then later on in my career, I had an opportunity to work in private schools as a teacher and as well as in a leadership role. So in the process, I've learned that education has become so dynamic. When we grew up, our teachers basically used the teacher lecture method, but now it's more about facilitation rather than pouring information into minds. I think things have changed a great deal, and as the world changes, teaching basically embraces technology as well.
Yeah, that's true. A lot has changed. A lot of change, and there's also talk right around how AI is also going to be slowly making or causing changes within the teaching sphere. And
Yeah, I like that you bring about artificial intelligence. Actually, I graduated 2 weeks ago with my master's degree
oh,
in physics.
congratulations.
Thank you so much. And in the process, my dissertation was basically looking at how AI can improve inclusivity of learners from different backgrounds. And we're looking at things like device access, internet connections, and things like that. And it's a huge challenge in Africa. And Zimbabwe is not an exception.
Wow, yeah. And I think that will actually be an interesting idea to go deeper into with a different episode around AI and education, because I think it's something that we also need to start priming ourselves around, like what changes are possibly going to come and how are we going to manage those changes.
And just for the record, possibly an area I could pursue for my PhD.
True, true. I definitely think that's a good idea. And when you're going beyond the classroom, have you found being a teacher? How has that contributed to shaping you personally at a personal level?
I think teaching is, you mentioned earlier on that it's some form of a calling. I didn't feel the edge to become a teacher earlier on in my life, but I got into the profession and then I got hooked. And up and until today, I'm passionate about it. I enjoy it. I love to help young minds grow and become the best they can be. But on a personal note, if I may just answer your question, it has made me a better man. I think that when you acting in local parentis and you've been given the opportunity by parents and all stakeholders to be responsible for these young minds, you tend to be responsible yourself, and it also builds your character as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I think we all noticed that change, right? When you were given that responsibility on of taking care of children and just also seeing how they're looking up to you as a mentor. And you've also spent a considerable part of your career in administration, in leadership. How did that transition come about? So how did you move from the classroom and
Um,
doing this?
Quite interesting. I taught in the Ministry of Education, worked for the government for about 4 years. Well, I was studying on the side, and I was studying for human resources management. So I got a job as a consultant, as a trainee consultant with the company in Harare. Worked there for about 2 years, joined the consultancy company. But when they basically, because of the economic meltdown, business was getting low, so we were not getting as many contracts as we would have loved as an organization. So they closed shop. And when I came back, the gentleman had opened up his private institution. He was looking for somebody to lead that. And he says, in his own words, he remembered that I was an effective teacher and he also liked my personality. So he gave me my first shot at administration and schools.
Wow. Well, and it was a big learning curve as well, right? Like moving from managing students in the classroom, now it's teachers,
And
it's parents, and even budgets as well.
and if you must know, it was the first time I started addressing parents, teacher meetings, huge gatherings, quite daunting at the first, but eventually you get used to it. And once you realize the shoes are big, then you need to man up and face the challenge.
Wow. And when you're recalling, what would you say were some of the really outstanding challenges you faced during this transition?
I think being young, because I became a school head at 29, and I was leading older people than me who felt that maybe I was not as experienced as they were or in the education business, but they also knew that my personality and my qualifications were equal to the task.
Yeah. And also it does bring some kind of fulfillment, right? Like just being in the leadership sphere. What would you say are some of the moments when you're looking back, moments of success where you're thinking, wow, we did a good job here?
I think that I wouldn't claim to be a, a very serious business strategist if you want. But I think I managed to increase the visibility of the first job I got as a principal. I managed to market the school. At the same time, our results were very good. And I was also happy to be part of the team that was teaching because I had a science class then. And my results were quite phenomenal and exemplary.
Wow, that's inspiring. And I think it's also encouraging to see educators that are evolving and creating systems help that will help schools do better. And I also know usually there's always the issue around resources, right? And schools always have to find ways of putting themselves out there. And I like the idea that you also mentioned around marketing, right? It's a business. You need to put it out there and also sell your idea to the people. Um, but when you're looking at the bigger picture, I think it's clear you've been in the educational field for so long and you've also seen
Precisely.
how it has evolved. But what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that teachers face and schools as well that they face in Zimbabwe today?
I think that there's fertile ground for for private schools in a country like Zimbabwe, it's fertile ground because the government is probably not focusing a lot on opening up new institutions. So entrepreneurs can take advantage of that opportunity. But at the same time, you can't help noticing that most of these schools underfunded, poor facilities, particularly in areas like science, maybe not inadequate laboratory systems for ICT and for pure sciences, STEM-related subjects. So it's that's the challenge that's there for entrepreneurs. And as for teachers, the challenge is good remuneration. Teaching is a good profession. I think it's a noble profession. Like I said earlier on, I got in there by accident, but I'm proud to be in the field. But as I'm seeing young people who are joining the profession, the bigger challenge is also their remuneration.
Yeah, it's interesting how you also speak around resources because I think sometimes private schools are then forced to be a little more innovative so that they're able to survive. And yet they're also feeling a gap that's very important within the education system. And when you're also looking at what you've done personally or what you've been involved in with schools you've worked with, what would you say are some of the creative strategies that were implemented that you think would or should inspire other schools?
It would be interesting for me to tell you that my last school that I was, I resigned in 2024, but I was the vice head of the school. And I had the privilege of being their first head, and I took the deputy head position in the process. As the school was getting larger, they felt that I needed to work with somebody who was more experienced than I was. But in the process, it was it was quite interesting to start from a greenfield, with 40 learners. And we're talking of a school that is probably in excess of 600 students today. So I presided over that. I was part of the team that made it happen. And I think I'm also very grateful to the powers be at Marchwood Senior School, where I was deputy head, for giving me the opportunity to explore my potential and abilities and be part of a team that was going somewhere. So it was a huge challenge, but I think the marketing was quite intense, meshed as well with a good pass rate in the process, progressively improving every year.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I think that's the biggest marketing game that you have, right? Your pass rate. That's what parents mostly look at. And it's also interesting how you speak about starting with a small group of students and how you managed to grow the school to the numbers
You
that
you
you
would you wouldn't believe if I told you that we started off. I think on opening day we had about 27 learners, but down the course of the year we ballooned to about 45, and in the subsequent years, like they say, the rest is history. We're talking in excess of
have.
600 students now.
Wow, wow, that's really impressive. And you've spoken to this a bit already on the role that private schools play in filling in the gap. But when you're looking at how they complement the public system within Zimbabwe,
Yes.
what would you say are the most important areas that they are covering, the areas where government is struggling right now, or maybe not
I
doing so
think
well?
that I think that the biggest challenge educationally is with STEM-related subjects. You find that most government institutions, particularly in rural Zimbabwe, they do not have adequate laboratory facilities, or nor do they have computer laboratories in place for learners to have subjects like ICT and computer science. So I think private schools, as they come in and complement government efforts, they are in a position where they can, well, assuming the funding is there, they're in a position where they can at least consolidate on that side of education, particularly STEM and ICT related issues.
Well, absolutely, I agree. And I think the system would work better if everyone is playing their part right and coming together and trying to fill
You,
in those gaps.
yeah, you find that we are at a point in nation building where we need to have government, private sector kind of synergies to try and address the gaps in education so that at least our education system can be as inclusive as possible.
That's true. That's true. And I would say, like, looking at the amount of years you've spent within the education system, that takes real dedication. What would you say motivates you to show up every day?
Um, Teaching is a job you wouldn't really do for money if you're going to be effective at it. You well, if the money is there, fair enough. But it is a job you would do because you're passionate about people. You're passionate about seeing others develop. And imagine the fulfillment you get when results come, students excited about their achievements, and even better still, when they become professionals or some people in their lives, and they come back to you just to give you a pat on your back and say, "Thank you, sir." It's amazing. It's worth $1 million if I were to say.
That's true. It is. It is. And I'm sure along the way you've also mentored some younger teachers. What advice do you usually share with them, especially those that are just starting out?
Well, I've had to work with many young graduates out of teacher training or out of university. Um, I've always shared that this kind of job you makes you mature before your age because there's a whole lot of expectation from parents, from colleagues, from students. They look up to you, so you need to share of certain aspects of your personality if it makes things work better. I always tell them that you have to dig deep into who you are to find out what kind of a teacher you're going to be. And in most cases, when I share my story, I always tell them that if you want to belong to the profession, then you got to get it right.
And when you look at just the stories that you've shared so far, I'm getting the feel that sometimes teaching can be tough, and sometimes you're placed in a situation where you have to make the most with limited resources. And also, um, when you're looking at also even recognition of teachers, right, in terms of remuneration, support, and things like that, sometimes those can be lacking. But what do you think schools can do to better support teachers and to keep them motivated?
I thank you for the question. I think I want to just start by highlighting the challenges. I think what I've noticed over the years is teacher motivation as a is an area really worth studying, but particularly in Africa, because you notice that private schools have become kind of creative as of now in their year-end prize giving ceremonies. They try to reward teachers who have done well. They've come up with incentives tied to pass rates. You get so many dollars for so many A's or so many B's that you produce. So all those kind of initiatives just help to keep the spark within the teachers. At the same time, you notice that over and above, teaching in Zimbabwe particularly is still a profession or is a profession that is not really being looked at in good esteem. And believe you, I'm telling you on good authority. That's just basically how teachers are viewed. But particularly in private schools, you find that they have all sorts of ideas of trying to at least compensate, motivate, and encourage teachers to do the best they can to make sure that work is done.
Well, and I think that's practical wisdom, right? That any school can try and bring on board in their own strategies as schools. And also, I believe that supporting schools, I mean, supporting teachers isn't just, you're not just supporting those particular individuals, it cascades down to the student as well and the future of the nation as well. So I think it's worth investing in, and it's
Yeah,
something that schools need to look at.
if you look at um, how strategic education is in terms of building human capital for a nation,
Mhm.
you don't need to be a rocket scientist then to understand that there is really need for us to pay attention with what's going on in the education sector. So at
Mm,
least we can invest in these young minds who are tomorrow's leaders, who are tomorrow's inventors, or tomorrow's diplomats.
that's true. And when you're looking at teachers, there might be some teachers who are listening in, and they're dreaming of starting their own schools or even just entering the leadership administration arena. What advice would you have for them?
To those who want to start their own schools, particularly in Zimbabwe, I think that, like I mentioned earlier on, it's fertile ground. There is room for that. Once you see the need, you do your market research, and you know that there's a particular the need is there. Absolutely, it's just a question of situating yourself right, knowing what kind of school you want to create, who you
Mhm.
want to serve, what your objectives are. Once you have that right, and I think it's an opportunity. And then for teachers who want to transition into leadership, I think that the best word I can have for them is um, being lead by example. That's how it works.
Mhm.
Um, the, once 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 you're doing the right thing as a teacher, it's then easier for you to place the same philosophy to your subordinates about getting work done. So I think that the most important thing is if you want to transition into leadership, be exemplary, be a leader before you become one. Once you want to lead, then you must also learn how to follow.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Interesting. And what about parents and communities? How can they also play a role in strengthening and helping schools to succeed?
I think that in the era that we live today, uh, students who succeed, it's not a secret. Students who succeed, it is also largely because of parental involvement. I think that parents need to take a very keen interest in the education of their children, directly and indirectly, finding out what kind of school they're taking their kids to, what does the school stand for, and also being stakeholders means that they also need to demand accountability from the schools in terms of their ethos and their mission. They need to understand if because at the end of the day, once a school is immune or separate from parental involvement, then it's we're breeding a problem.
Mhm. Mhm. Interesting. And I think also it's something that is important for parents to be mindful of, that having your child in school is not like you're ceding your responsibilities as a parent to the school, but you're actually just collaborating with them in
But
in,
it
yeah.
would be interesting for me to tell you that over the years, I've also observed that with all the migration that is taking place in Zimbabwe, there are lots of child-headed families,
Mm,
and it's sad. And you find that in most cases, a lot of potential is lost in the process because these are child-headed homes or families. Parents are away, probably trying to make an extra dollar to take care of the
mhm,
families and even get them to good schools, I may say. But in the process, once a child does not have enough support systems in place, family, church, or whatever you name it, it tends to affect their education quite grossly.
well, you're bringing a different dynamic again right into the discussion on the impacts of immigration on children and their education. And Yeah, it's interesting and sad at the same time, the issue that you mentioned around how children end up having to be um, responsible for themselves in the absence of parents because of economic
Children.
challenges that push
Yeah.
the parents into immigration. And as we wrap up, what would you say is your vision for education in Zimbabwe? Like, close your eyes, dream. What would you wish
Okay.
for
If
Zimbabwe's
if
education?
if Norma, if I was to wear my foresight glasses and sort of like dive into the future, I would let you know that I would want a total uh, curriculum revamp. We
Mm,
need to inculcate into these learners skills that are transferable to their lives after school.
mm,
I think we need to move away from an education system based on rote learning, where learners can recite definitions and
mm,
they cram for the examination, but once they're out there in the world, they're not they don't have much to contribute.
mhm. Interesting. And I think one of the, I always say this in conversations with people, how we inherited a colonial system, but I'm
Sure.
certain the people who developed this system would not still have it in the state that it is today. They would have evolved. And I think that's something we need to be mindful of. Um, how do we make it evolve? And also, how do we make it work for our people, our needs, and also looking at what is required like by the Zimbabwean economy. What kind of graduates should we be putting out? What kind of education system do we want for the children
I
that sort
I like I like education 5.0.
Mhm.
It's got the right tenets, but unfortunately not the infrastructure to support it. I
um,
think that as Zimbabweans or as a government or as a people, we understand what needs to be done, but there's just not enough infrastructure to to make it gel together so that we can make progress. I mean, we want graduates that are competitive. We want
mhm,
graduates that open businesses. We want graduates that create opportunities for others. We want graduates that invent things. But I think the philosophy is right, but it's the mechanism or the infrastructure
mhm.
which is lacking.
Interesting. Yeah, like what you just said reminded me that there has been a revamp of the education system, right? With also bringing in the practical side where you're trying to push learners to do more practical work. But then the challenge is also around the resources to be able to fully do this. It's interesting. And I think great that you mention it. And it's also something that policymakers also need to sort of look into, but also communities on their own need to figure
Yeah,
out how they can support their local schools to be able
and,
to feed
and
into
that's
this.
right because I think that we need to even exploit private-public partnerships.
Mhm,
These learners in schools are learning from teachers who have never run businesses, teachers who have never invented anything. So I think we need to exploit even private public partnerships where we can get captains of industry coming to mentor groups, clubs, and things like that. We need an active involvement. It's a national issue as far as I'm concerned. We need to active involvement of everybody so we can turn around. I think, like I said, the philosophy is right. It's the infrastructure or the useful adjuncts that we need to put in place to ensure that at least our graduates can be graduates who are competitive, who are global citizens, if I may say.
mhm, mhm. That's right. Yeah, I think that's an encouraging note to end on because you come up with possible solutions, ways, things that we could, avenues we could pursue to try and improve the education sector. And it's refreshing when you get to hear it from someone who's been in the field for so long, has seen a lot, and
Yeah.
you speak with so much passion. It's showing just how much you really are dedicated to this field.
And thank you for noticing that.
Oh yeah, it's clear. It's clear for everyone to see, and I'm really grateful that you joined us for this episode of Authentic Voices. I believe this story that you shared is a powerful reminder that teaching is not just about textbooks, right? That There's more to it. It's about shaping people and looking also at building communities, the triple P's that you were talking about, and also the importance of being able to leave a lasting legacy for our communities and for our children.
Uh, I must also just say, you don't know how humbled I am by you inviting me on this platform. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Courage. Thank you very much, Courage, for joining us on Authentic Voices today. Your story was really insightful and powerful, and a great reminder on what education really is. And to our listeners, if you've been inspired by this episode, take a moment to appreciate a teacher in your life or consider how you can contribute to education in your own community. You can listen to this and other episodes on our Authentic Voices accounts on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and also share your thoughts to join the conversation. I'm Noma, and this has been Authentic Voices, where every story matters and every voice has power. Until next time, goodbye.